Hello there, in this episode we are going to be creating this fire effect for mobile. It looks good. I mean, if you're thinking about mobile, the texture quality is a little bit low, and that's deliberate because um, here's the texture we are using in this effect, and the texture right now is 1.3 megabytes, but the imported texture was 87 megabytes. We can't afford that, so we can just I mean, we have to use a 1024 texture. I mean, if the default texture, look at the quality of the default texture, is much better, much better. And um let's create everything step by step, and I'll explain everything in a way. So to start things off, you'll need a material. Just right click, create a material, name it M underline particle effect, open it up. This is the texture that you can download from the description. This is the texture that I always use. It's a texture I had exported from Houdini. You can, if you want to export your texture from the Niagara fluids, you can do that. You can bake the whole effect into a texture. This is all animations. It's just 64 frames animations, frame 0, 1, 3, and so on to 63. So these are all animations. You can bake the animation into the texture inside the Unreal Engine. I didn't do that. You can too just go ahead and use the texture I had created. Just download it, link in the description. Drag the texture into the scene like this, just drag it into the scene, and then coming out of RGB, you can just multiply, hold M on your keyboard, multiply, and you need to multiply it by particle color. There are some times that you want to change the color inside the Niagara system, so you need to be using this effect, this node as well. And then we have 1 minus, because right now it's opposite. We want the opposite side of it. We want this part. If you use the use everything without 1 minus, let me show you how it looks. It doesn't look like a fire, it looks like a I know what that is really, it's just weird. But with the 1 minus, you have a fire and some smoke out of it. Okay, so this is the smooth step to simulation the smoke. So without it, you only have fire without any smoke. It doesn't, I mean, it's not bad, but it doesn't look as natural. But if you go ahead and smooth step, and I've come with the just make sure you grab this node with holding control and dragging it into the value. I found out that the value of 0.65 works best, and with this step, smooth step, I'm sorry, you'll have some smoke as well. You can go ahead and, oh, not this one, so this one. Try to have more smoke, but this doesn't look natural. 0.65 for me is the best. Okay, so this is where everything gets interesting. Normally you have to use a black body node to simulate everything, right? So it will be like if the so you have to multiply it, hold M, and then multiply it by some value, and this will be your degree. So if the value is the max value is 1, multiply it by 4,000 means that you have 4,000 degrees of Celsius going into the temperature node in the black body. Black body simulates the warmth and how it looks inside Unreal. So with using it, all you can do is go to this and do a 4,000, for example, and it's not as warm. So maybe we could just go ahead and 10,000. Okay, step smooth is too much for this one. So if you want to do that, maybe you could just decrease this smooth step for it. Yeah. And then you'll have something that looks like a fire. Blackbody is the main option, but in my experience it didn't work in mobile. Maybe it's just because I'm using the in project settings rendering, I'm using the GPU scene. GPU scene doesn't work with world position offset as well with this node as well, but normally world position offset works without GPU scene, and maybe if you're not using GPU scene on mobile, Blackbody node works as well. I don't know that. You can just go ahead and try it out for yourself. But in my case, I'm using GPU scene. It's very important for me. It's a game changer. I'd recommend you using it as well, but you know it. So in my case, I have to not use the Blackbody node. So I just go do it this way, multiplying it by a value. This is a dynamic parameter. It means that you will be able to change this parameter inside the Niagara system. You don't have to worry about it now, so you can just go ahead and drag and connect it into the emissive color just like that. Okay, for the opacity part, it's just very simple. You have the particle color that goes into the multiply particle color, this one. It's got one RGB, which we are not using at the moment, and one opacity, which we have to multiply by the alpha channel of the texture I shared with you, and you can download it from the link in the description. So multiply it by that. Depth fade is really important. So look at these parts that are everything's fine. Look at these parts that are the fire is contacting with the ground. It's not as bad, but without depth fade, it looks bad. It looks really bad. So depth fade is important. Maybe you could give it a value of 200. And it makes you feel like it's not contacting with the ground. It goes into the opacity, and that's it for the material. That's it for the material. And oh, by the way, the main material should be translucent and unlit. If you're working in mobile, this one should be unlit. If you are working with PC, you can just go ahead and do a default lit and maybe change a lighting mode to something really heavy. That's up to you. Okay. Now that we have the material, we can just go ahead and right click and create a Niagara system and select new, yes. Maybe you can use a fountain. This one, click add and then finish and then give it a name. I've already created one, ns underline fire. And there are nodes. If your nodes are different, that's no problem. Just make sure all the nodes are the same as I have here. So sim target is going to be CPU sim, and the bounds mode is going to be fixed for me. So you can change the bounds by using this button here, and make sure set fixed bound system and set fixed bound emitter are clicked. Emitter state is gonna be self, complete, infinite, and loop duration should be 20. Scalability, I don't use scalability mode at the moment, but you should create some scalability options for you. If you are working on a mobile device and you are using this fire effect everywhere, you should use enable distance calling and visibility calling. It's enabled by default, but distance calling means that if the, let me see, system, if you are able to see the fire from here, you shouldn't be able to see the fire from here. It just stops spawning new emitters, which makes sense because mobile, it is a transparent material. It's gonna add shader complexity, it's gonna add rendering performance to the GPU, so the load will increase drastically. So it makes sense if you go ahead and enable distance calling and maybe put something like 3,000 to 4,000 for mobile, but I'm not using it at the moment since I'm not using a lot of fire in my scene. Okay, spawn rate, I've just multiplied it by something, but you can just go ahead and give it a value of 5. That wouldn't matter. 5 should be good to go. Initialize particle is really important. So I have a user parameter. You can add user parameters in here, and I have added a float variable in the user parameter section. You can just click and name it something. But this is 1.5, so this should be 300 to 450, something like that. It's not important, but it should be random uniform because we want different shapes, different scales, and the rotation should be random. Lifetime mode should be random, and lifetime mean 1.5, lifetime max 2. I've added a shape location. If you don't have that, come in here, type in shape location, that's it. It's a box plane. It's a plane instead of box. The default should be a box, but you have to change it to a plane. And this should be 15 by 15 for you. Okay, I have a little bit of velocity. If you don't have that, just add it from here in the particle spawn. You can't, in Niagara system, you can't add velocity in the particle update. You need to have a little bit of velocity while spawning the particle at the moment. As linear, it's a random range vector, so you can just come in here, type in random range vector, minus 50, 50, minus 50, 50, 0, 20, and that's it. So I have a drag force. It was there. I didn't change it much, but the force is 0.25. And I have a scale color, so you can just come in here, scale color. It's just to, if I don't have that, look how bad it looks. They just spawn in and spawn out. We need to fade them in and fade them out, and this is what this node does for us. So scale color, we are not touching the RGB part, but in the alpha part we are getting the float from a curve. So typing curve, float from curve, and then you can just right click, add a key in the Z, in the 0 second with the 0 value, add a key for 1 second with the 0 value, and add another key in the 0.5 with the 1 value. And the scale curve should be 1, and this is the default value. It should be based on normalized age. This will be there by default. If you add a velocity, if you don't have that, it will add one for you. So sub UV animation is important. Sub UV animation, this one here. Because we are having an animation inside the texture, we are using the sub UV animation node. It's linear. As I told you, it's 8 by 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 by 8. And make sure the maximum texture size is 1024. As I told you, this size is important. It both uses the package size and memory usage. So if your game is using memory for like 1 gigabyte in total, with just adding this texture, you'll go up to 1 gigabyte and 87 megabytes. So make sure, this is really important. This is like a warning to you. Make sure the maximum texture size is not more than 1024 if you're working on mobile. If you're working on PC, then 2048 is your maximum amount. Don't go over that. It's dangerous stuff. The source should be sprite renderer, you have to make sure that you select sprite renderer. I changed the sub UV lookup index a little bit. It just changes the speed of the animation. I slowed it down a little bit. If you go ahead and do that, maybe you want a faster fire, you can do that here, but I'd prefer 0.7 to be a good number for me. You don't need to use this one. If you want to change the dynamic parameters inside the material in real time, you can just go ahead and type in dynamic material parameters, and you have 4 nodes here: RGB parameter 320, and you have all of them here as well. So RGB, if you change one of them, it will be changed in the other way in the Niagara system as well. So it's like if you want to make sure that this is being changed from a curve, you can set the curve up, and you will make sure that this one here, this value, is going to be changed inside the material. I didn't use that. I'm not using it at all, so it's not important. The next section is sprite renderer. So the material we've created, you have to find it in the content browser and make sure that you are using the M1 Online Fire Particle. The facing mode should be face camera, or you can try different stuff. Maybe you don't want them to rotate and face the camera all the time. Unaligned. To face the camera all the time. Look at that. It just doesn't make sense to have it like this. Okay, maybe you can just go ahead and try all of them together, and maybe you will find some of them working better than others for you. To me, all of them just work the same, but anyway, it's the default value to have it face the camera. Sub image size, the default value is 1 by 1. You don't want it to be like this because you have an 8 by 8 texture. So if I go ahead and do a 4 by 4, it will have 4 fires for me, but I need 8 by 8. And sub UV blending enabled is important. Without it, it's just a little bit laggy. It's a really cool feature to have everything smooth out. And now you have it. You can just go ahead and drag your fire into the scene, and that's pretty much it, I believe. Oh, system state is going to be inactive response is going to be complete, loop behavior infinite, loop duration 5. There's nothing else that I should have told you about. The brightness thing you are seeing here, the user parameter brightness, is just something I'm using in my game and don't really need it. It's just something so if you want to make a new user parameter, just go ahead and type in float, give it a name, and you're good to go. Okay, this was it, and I hope. Oh, by the way, you can add some details, little details to your fire as well, like some little sprites going out, little dots. I didn't do that, and I don't want to do that in my game, so it's just something that you can decide whether you want it or not. This was it. I hope it helped, and if it did help, please hit that like button and have a great day. Bye.